The fluorescent lights of the emergency room flickered like dying stars, casting shadows across the faces of people who had forgotten what hope looked like. I sat there with my daughter's small hand gripping mine, her fever burning through her skin, and I prayed to a God I wasn't sure existed anymore. That's when I saw her, a woman whose name I didn't know, whose face I would never forget, and whose single act of kindness would shatter everything. I thought I understood about the world. She wasn't remarkable in any obvious way. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and exhaustion lined her eyes like permanent ink. But when she looked at my daughter, something shifted in the sterile air between us. Without a word, she knelt beside Emma's chair, checked her temperature with a gentle touch, and whispered something that made my 7-year-old smile for the first time in 3 days. "I'm not your nurse yet," she said to me, "but I've got a daughter too. Let me see what I can do." That was Sarah. Or at least, that's what her name tag read when I finally thought to check. In a system that had ground us down with 4-hour waits and clipboard bureaucracy, she became our lighthouse. Within 20 minutes, Emma was being seen. Within an hour, we had answers, medication, and most importantly, relief flooding through our veins like cool water after a drought. I tried to thank her, stumbling over words that felt too small for what she'd done. She just shook her head, already moving toward the next crisis, the next family sitting in those unforgiving plastic chairs. "Pay it forward," she called back. "That's all I ask. Pay it forward." The words followed me home that night, echoed in my mind as I watched Emma sleep peacefully for the first time in days, and settled into my bones like a challenge I couldn't ignore. 3 weeks later, I saw him at the grocery store, an elderly man counting coins at the register, his hands shaking as he tried to figure out which items to put back. His cart held the basics: bread, milk, eggs, a small container of coffee. Behind him, a line of impatient customers checked their phones and sighed with theatrical frustration. I thought of her, of Sarah's tired eyes and immediate compassion, of her daughter, who probably waited for her after long shifts just like Emma waited for me. "I've got it," I heard myself say, moving forward before my practical brain could object. The man turned, confusion and pride warring on his weathered face. "I can't let you—" "Please," I interrupted gently. "Someone helped me recently when I needed it most. Let me pass it on." His name was Frank. He was a veteran who'd fallen through the cracks of a system that promised to catch people like him. As I paid for his groceries and added a few extra items when he wasn't looking, he told me about his wife who'd passed the previous winter, about the pension that didn't stretch far enough, about the dignity that poverty slowly strips away. "You don't know what this means," he said as we walked to the parking lot, his eyes bright with unshed tears. But I did know. I'd seen it in Sarah's face when she helped Emma. This wasn't about money or groceries, or even medical care. It was about being seen, being valued, being reminded that you mattered in a world that often treated people as inconveniences. Frank and I stayed in touch. He called me a few weeks later, his voice excited in a way that made him sound decades younger. "I want to show you something," he said. He took me to a community center on the south side of town, a building I'd driven past 1,000 times without really seeing. Inside, a dozen kids from the neighborhood sat in a circle while Frank taught them woodworking. Their eyes shone with focus and pride as they sanded, measured, and created. "After what you did," he explained, "I realized I was so focused on what I'd lost that I forgot what I still had to give. These kids, they need someone who believes in them. Figured I could be that someone. I watched a girl no older than Emma carefully apply varnish to a birdhouse she'd built, her tongue poking out in concentration. When she finished, Frank's praise made her beam with accomplishment. "This is incredible," I whispered. "Pay it forward," Frank said, echoing Sarah's words. "That's what you taught me." The ripples kept spreading. One of Frank's students, a teenager named Marcus, started volunteering at a food bank. He told me his story one afternoon when I came to visit Frank's workshop. His mother worked 3 jobs, and there were nights when dinner meant choosing between eating or making sure his younger siblings did. "Mr. Frank, he makes me feel like I'm worth something," Marcus said. "Like I've got something to offer beyond just surviving. So I figured if he can give his time, I can give mine." Marcus convinced the food bank to start a program delivering meals to elderly shut-ins. He recruited other teenagers, organized routes, and transformed what could have been. Court-ordered community service into a movement of young people who genuinely cared. I met some of the people Marcus helped. There was Dorothy, who hadn't had a real conversation in weeks until Marcus started visiting. There was Chen, whose limited English had isolated him from his neighbors until Marcus brought others who spoke Mandarin. There was Maria, whose disability made grocery shopping nearly impossible until these kids started showing up at her door. Each of them had stories. Each of them had been invisible until someone chose to see them. 6 months after that night in the emergency room, I received a call from an unknown number. "Is this Lisa?" a woman's voice asked. "Lisa Chen?" "Yes, who's this?" "You probably don't remember me. My name is Sarah. I'm a nurse at County General. You and your daughter Emma came through the ER a while back." My heart skipped. "Of course I remember you. You saved us that night." "Actually," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I'm calling because you saved me." She explained that after years of working in emergency medicine, she'd been drowning in burnout and compassion fatigue. She'd stopped seeing patients as people, started viewing them as problems to solve, diagnoses to make. The night she helped Emma, she'd been moments away from quitting, from walking away from the profession that had once meant everything to her. "But then I saw you and your little girl," Sarah continued. "Something about the way she held your hand reminded me of why I became a nurse in the first place. After you left, I went home and actually talked to my own daughter for the first time in weeks. Really talked." She paused, collecting herself. "Then last week I got a letter. It was from an elderly man named Frank. He said you'd helped him at a grocery store, and that kindness had inspired him to start mentoring kids in his neighborhood. One of those kids, Marcus, had just delivered meals to Frank's neighbor, my mother, who I'd been too overwhelmed to visit regularly. Marcus told my mom about the whole chain of kindness, and she told me." I couldn't speak. The connections, the ripples that had spread from one moment of compassion in a crowded emergency room were almost too much to comprehend. "I just wanted you to know," Sarah said softly, "that when you pay it forward, you never really know where it ends up. But sometimes it comes back around in the most unexpected ways." That evening, I held Emma close as I told her the story, all of it, from Sarah's kindness to Frank's transformation to Marcus's initiative and back to Sarah again. "So one nice thing made all of that happen?" Emma asked, her eyes wide. "Not just one nice thing," I corrected gently. "A choice. Sarah chose to see us when she could have just done her job. I chose to help Frank when I could have looked away. Frank chose to share his skills instead of his sorrow. Marcus chose service over self-pity. Each of us had a choice, and each of us chose connection over convenience." Emma was quiet for a moment, then said, "I want to choose that too." "You will, baby. You already do. Because that's the truth about kindness. It's not a personality trait or a character flaw. It's a muscle we build through practice, a language we learn through repetition, a legacy we create one choice at a time. I think of Sarah often now. Her name has become shorthand in our house for that moment when you decide to show up for someone else. When Emma helps a classmate who's struggling, when she shares her lunch with a kid who forgot theirs, when she includes someone who's sitting alone, she's channeling that same energy. "I'm being a Sarah," she'll say, and I realize that's the greatest gift that exhausted nurse gave us that night. Not just immediate help, but a template for living. A reminder that we're all connected by invisible threads of compassion, and that pulling on one thread can create a tapestry we never imagined possible. Frank still teaches woodworking. Marcus graduated high school and is now studying social work. Sarah and I have coffee sometimes, and she always asks about Emma with the same gentle concern she showed that first night. My mother has joined Frank's neighbor visits, finding purpose in her retirement. The community center has expanded to 2 locations. And it all started with her, a tired nurse in wrinkled scrubs who chose, in a moment when she could have done the minimum, to do something more. That's the power we all carry. The ability to be someone's her, to be the moment when everything changes, to be the catalyst for kindness that echoes far beyond what we can see. We just have to choose it again and again, one small act of humanity at a time. "Pay it forward," Sarah said. But what she really meant was simpler. Be the person you needed when you needed someone most. Be her for someone else, and trust that somewhere, somehow, the world becomes a little bit gentler because you did.